Eloise Asylum's dark and turbulent history makes it a perfect breeding ground for unhappy and sometimes aggressive ghosts and entities. As a former institution for the mentally ill, poor, and infirm, it housed countless individuals who suffered from neglect, mistreatment, and mental anguish over the decades. The treatments used in the asylum's heyday, such as electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and forced isolation, were often brutal and dehumanizing. Patients were frequently subjected to painful, invasive procedures that left them physically and emotionally scarred. These traumatic experiences can imprint themselves on the environment, leaving behind residual energy that feeds into the darker aspects of the paranormal. The combination of emotional suffering, unmarked graves, and a history of unresolved pain provides a perfect storm for the manifestations of very unhappy spirits. Hello listeners, welcome to Dark and Divine Encounters. I'm your host, Denise Dodge, and each episode I will be guiding you through two real supernatural encounters, one eerie and the other heartwarming. Life is a mix of trials and triumphs, and I've seen the paranormal is no different. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and follow us on social media for updates. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Please note, this podcast features stories of paranormal activity and true crime, which may contain details or descriptions of events and incidents that may be unsettling or triggering for some listeners. Take care of your needs first and always. Today, for our dark segment, we're taking you to the Eloise Asylum, a place with a haunting history, and it's full of eerie stories of ghostly encounters. This abandoned psychiatric hospital is infamous for its chilling atmosphere and the unexplained phenomena that has been reported by those brave enough to explore its decaying halls. From shadowy figures and mysterious footsteps to eerie messages from beyond, Eloise Asylum is a hotspot for the supernatural. What role do haunted locations like Eloise Asylum play in shaping our understanding of the afterlife for spirits? And for our divine segment, we're going to explore the Sedona Vortex sites, a series of natural locations known for their powerful spiritual energy. These vortexes are believed to be centers of mystical energy that can enhance meditation, spiritual enlightenment, and personal transformation. With their stunning landscapes and deep cultural significance, Sedona's vortex sites offers a unique connection to the divine. Established in 1839, it was called the Wayne County Poorhouse, and it served as a shelter for individuals in need, offering refuge to those who were marginalized or could not be housed elsewhere. The poorhouse became a haven for the destitute, mentally ill, disabled, elderly, and orphaned individuals, and it played a vital role in the community for over a century. During its operational years, it was a place of both care and sorrow, where some people found safety, but many others endured harsh conditions, which was unfortunately very common for these institutions at the time. By 1981, after more than 140 years in operation, the facility closed its doors for good. And since its closure, the building spent many years abandoned and in severe disrepair, drew the curious, paranormal enthusiasts, and thrill seekers. It would be many years before someone found new purpose in the land. The facility's history, filled with both human suffering and some compassion, has become shrouded in legends and ghostly tales, making it a prominent location for paranormal investigators. It stands as a stark reminder of an era where the forgotten and unwanted were often hidden away from society, and now its spirits are said to remain, lingering in the shadows of its decaying halls. It originally intended to be a haven for poor people who were unhoused and in need, But by the middle of 1840s, Detroit started sending all of their so-called quote-unquote problematic citizens to the facility. This included a variety of individuals, which ranged from inmates, individuals that were at the time deemed insane, and literally anyone that was under unfortunate circumstances. It was said that if a woman became too expensive and supposedly problematic, her husband could drop her off at the facility and abandon her there by claiming that she was in need of mental health care. At one point, inmates were being housed with pigs, and they were chained into their living quarters. It was endless days with the horrific sound of people shrieking, mixed in with the squealing screeches from pigs. It caused nightmares in its staff members. In 1869, medical reforms began humanizing the psychiatric profession. Psychiatry would have a very, very long way to go, but this was the beginning, and as with most progress, it was a slow transition. But in 1869, inmates were finally moved out of the pig areas and into separate buildings away from the animals. Unfortunately, both the individuals with mental illness or any registered inmates still had to be chained to their areas, but they were at least separated from the pigs. In 1861, they allowed the individuals with mental illness to be given space without chains restraining them. At one point, they changed the name of the facility and they divided the place into two wards. There was the Eloise Infirmary for the sick and elderly and the Eloise Hospital for the insane. And while things were slowly improving compared to how it was previously, this was still a horrific place to be housed. In 1903, an outbreak of tuberculosis caused the number of patients admitted into the facility to rise dramatically. They were sent here to be held until the state government had other buildings completed to house them and their attempt to treat them. Unfortunately, tuberculosis patients were isolated and often kept far away from the rest of society. It was an incredibly lonely place for them. In the 1930s, there was another flood of people to the property, and it was a direct response to the Depression. They were reaching new numbers that they had not hit prior in their history. The number of destitute and mentally ill individuals on site rose past 8,300 tenants. Eloise housed more than they had room for, and everyone was shoved in everywhere possible. People experiencing the most sorrowful lows of their lives were being forced to live next to other people suffering just as deeply. Individuals suffering from economic hardship were sleeping next to people with debilitating and emotionally distressing mental illness. And yet next to them were the sick and slowly dying under the weight of tuberculosis. This place offered very little hope, except that it was a roof and it provided minimal food. There was very little done to provide hope or treatment to the residents at this time. They would spend hours upon hours and days after days staring out windows, analyzing cracks in the wall, and engaging in repeated behaviors like tying and untying their shoes. The human brain cannot handle being shoved into an unstimulating place with no positive activities. The lack of stimulation slowly worsened the mental and physical conditions of all the people present. In the 1950s, electrotherapy was introduced, and by this time, the facility had been renamed to Wayne County General Hospital. It was one of the largest psychiatric facilities during this time period in the United States. Patients were crammed into packed rooms, and there were even beds in the hallway. There are stories of patients being physically assaulted by staff, and medical malpractice was constantly being reported, but nothing was being done about it. this facility grew very large. It expanded into a sprawling city-like complex. It had over 75 buildings and it was spread out across 900 acres. This is a large facility. This self-contained community, basically, it included the general hospital. It had its own police and fire departments, and they had their own dairy and pig farms, as well as a bakery and a small school for children. Over time, the facility was not prepared to meet the demands of the quickly changing medical reforms aimed at protecting people and transitioning towards more humane and compassionate treatment. There are 7,100 individual nameless graves on the hospital grounds, and it's in a space called Potter's Field. The hospital was drowning under financial stress. Towards the end of its time, the hospital was drowning under financial stress, and in 1981, the complex was completely shut down. The buildings were left abandoned, and the goal for the community was to just slowly demolish the buildings. Eloise Asylum has since become a popular destination today, drawing in visitors with its eerie paranormal tours and haunted experiences. Desiree Harper, who manages the site, often leads investigations on the grounds and has personally encountered very strange occurrences, which includes shadowy apparitions and flickering lights. The deep history of the asylum lingers in every part of the property, and it gives the guests the feelings of being transported to a different era. You can go on their website and schedule real paranormal investigations as well. The owner, John Hambrick, he bought the property in 2018 for $1 and has since turned it into a haunted attraction. Eloise Asylum's dark and turbulent history makes it a perfect breeding ground for unhappy and malevolent ghosts and entities, and I think this is something to think about if you do go visit. The property is a former institution for people struggling with mental illness, people struggling with financial stability. It housed countless individuals who suffered from neglect, mistreatment, and mental anguish over the decades. These treatments, they ranged from electroshock therapy to forced isolation and lobotomies, and the things they had to go through were very brutal and dehumanizing. These patients were frequently subjected to painful, invasive procedures, and it left them physically and emotionally scarred. And a lot of people died on this property after suffering from this treatment. These traumatic experiences can imprint themselves on the environment, and it leaves behind residual energy that feeds into the darker aspects of the paranormal. The combination of emotional suffering, unmarked graves, and a history of unresolved pain provides a very perfect storm for the manifestations of very unhappy spirits. Additionally, the physical and psychological isolation that many of the patients experienced while they were alive can create really restless spirits, especially when those individuals died in fear, confusion, and oftentimes, most of the times, without closure. Spirits associated with these types of places, they get trapped by their suffering, and it makes it very difficult for them to move on to the next stages of the afterlife. And as time passes, this energy can grow and transform and change, and they can sometimes attract other darker entities, and it can sometimes create hostile manifestations of existing spirits. And the sense of abandonment and dereliction can act as a magnet for negative forces, making this site an ideal place for malevolent paranormal activity. Healing trauma and confronting injustice is absolutely vital because unresolved pain and suffering does not disappear after death. It can persist as paranormal energy, even when the physical spaces tied to them, like Eloise Asylum, are demolished. At Eloise, many patients endured horrific treatment, neglect, and emotional anguish, and it left a very strong permanent imprint on the energy of the place. And though Although the majority of the asylum's buildings have been since torn down, the lingering trauma and unresolved suffering for those who pass through there, they're not gone. The buildings are gone, but they're not gone. Their energy, the energy from their pain, it remains, and it manifests in hauntings and unsettling paranormal activity. And this shows that trauma, when it's unhealed, it needs to move in some direction. And sometimes it chooses a malevolent direction. So continuing to exist in a spiritual form long after the physical structure is gone. Therefore, addressing trauma and seeking resolution in life is absolutely essential to prevent it from festering into something darker, both in this world and beyond. Eloise Asylum has since become an attraction that people flock to, and it's being transformed into something new while still trying to honor and respect the suffering that existed there prior to its current use. Many people have investigated the property and have reported seeing various things ranging from the Hat Man, the Red-Eyed Demon, dense black moving shadows, peekaboo spirits. If you don't know what that is, they are these little entities that peek around the corner really fast and pull back. It's hard to get an image of them, but you'll see them oftentimes in your peripheral, off the side of your vision. The famous Hat Man has been caught on camera on the 3rd floor, and if you go visit, they have photos of it. The temperature will suddenly drop for no reason at all. People have been scratched, physically scratched, where you can see it on their skin. And there's a lot of reports of feeling dread and terror just enveloping the room. Investigation teams have set up cameras and had the battery completely swiped clean of its energy and turned off. Some investigators have used devices like EVP, EMF, spirit talkers, and others. And I was able to speak to someone who's been to the Eloise Asylum. He wanted to keep his identity secret, but he was willing to write me a short write-up of what happened to him when he went to Eloise. Hey listeners, give me a moment just to tell you about one of my affiliate sponsors. Are you ready to supercharge your mornings? Meet Grateful Earth Coffee, the coffee that not only wakes you up, but also powers up your brain. So what's the secret? There's 6 amazing nootropics packed into every delicious cup. Nootropics are like brain boosters that enhance your focus, memory, and mental clarity. So imagine starting your day not just with a jolt of caffeine, but a super smart boost. So here's the lineup. There's lion's mane mushroom. Think of this as brain food promoting cognitive function and creativity. Next, we have chaga mushroom, which is for immune system support. Cordyceps mushroom, which is for energy and stamina. Bacopa monieri, which is for memory and relaxation. L-theanine, which smooths out caffeine's edges so that you have a more calm, focused energy. And last but not least, we have ginkgo biloba, and this boosts circulation to the brain, which ultimately sharps your mental edge. So start your day the smart way with Grateful Earth Coffee by using my affiliate link in the video description to purchase Grateful Earth Coffee. You'll not only support this brain boosting beverage, but you'll also help keep my podcast, Dark and Divine Encounters, thriving. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and follow us on social media for updates. Thank you so much. I'm just going to read his words as he wrote it. I have a friend who regularly goes on ghost hunts with a group he knows. They don't get paid for it, but they do it for fun, like a hobby, I guess. My friend called me one day and said that one of his friends wasn't going to be able to go on the ghost hunt that they had scheduled, and if I wanted to pay him for the ticket, I could have his spot. Apparently, you have to schedule the tour in advance, and they needed the extra hand with hauling the equipment. He said it would be from 8 p.m. at night until 3 in the morning. I had mentioned in the past how I thought it was cool that he did this sort of thing, and he said someday he would invite me, but I didn't expect it to really happen. I'd seen stories online, I'd heard the rumors, but I never thought I'd actually be part of something like this. A lady welcomed us. She let us in and she showed us where we could unload our gear. She gave us a tour of the place, explaining the most common haunting spots and rooms where really horrific things happen to people. There was a room where a girl drowned, and the guys that I was with seemed excited to come back and interview her. They were excited about a lot of things. I felt so out of my element. I tried my best to just keep an open mind and be as helpful as possible despite having zero experience in this. So there I was, standing in the decaying halls of Eloise, surrounded by seasoned ghost hunters. They were confident, methodical, and they knew exactly what they were doing. This was not their first time. I asked generally to the room as they were setting up their cameras and other miscellaneous devices, "So do you think you'll catch something tonight?" Everyone in the room immediately started laughing and nodding without any second guessing. My friend explained that there's tons of videos of the place all over the internet. Everyone catches stuff in this place, EVPs and weird technological inferences, you'll see. The place was massive, dark, musty, and filled with a very weird silence. We started off with the usual equipment. There were flashlights and cameras. There was lots of other stuff that I didn't understand. One of them was a spirit talker device, and they had it on their phone. One of the guys asked out into the room, "Harmonia, we've come a long way to meet you. I have this device that will recognize your energy, and all you need to do is talk into it and it'll tell me what you said. Harmonia, can you tell us, are you here with us?" He placed the phone on a chair in the middle of the room. Nothing happened. I stayed quiet, but the longer we stayed quiet, the more the tension seemed to rise up inside of me. Right when he was about to say something, the device went off, and it both said and wrote on the screen the word "girl." Everyone burst out like an emotional response. They gasped, they covered their mouths, and the guy asked out into the room again, "You're a girl. Are you Harmonia? Did you die?" This time there was less silence, and the device responded quicker with "can't breathe." Everyone gasped again, reflected on how Harmonia had died by drowning according to the news articles. The guy speaking took a deep breath, and what he said next, I'll never forget it. He said, "Harmonia, you didn't deserve what happened to you. We know that this place was a scary place for you. Is there anything you want to tell us about your life?" The device answered, "Died young." Then before he could respond, it answered again, "This place was horrible." He acknowledged that it was horrible, and we all heard about it, and we just felt so deeply for her. I'm not gonna lie, I felt the grief and sadness in that room. I don't know exactly what happened to her, but I felt the emotion. I started getting tears in my eyes, and I fought hard to keep them down. Then things got weirder. Multiple devices that we set up began to flash on and off when we asked them to. Someone said, "Can you activate that device over there?" And sure enough, the light would blink in response. It was like the place was alive with a force, and it responded directly to our questions. That's when the spirit talker went off again. It said, "Run away." We all sat there. No one spoke. No one ran away. The room was quiet, and the camera set up to me shut off. My friend, he grabbed it and he picked it up and he said the battery is completely dead. We haven't even been here an entire hour. The guys started discussing amongst one another, and I asked my friend, "Well, maybe it needs to be charged?" But he shook his head and he said, "No, we have a strict ritual for devices. Everything's charged the day prior. There's no reason for the battery to die. This is ghost hunting 101. You make sure you have charged batteries." I don't know how to explain it, but there was a feeling of dread just trickling into the room. You could feel it. It started at my toes and it started rising. You could feel it rising up the body. and expanding out into the space around you. A dense black shadow moved across the doorway, and all of us, we turned our heads to look to the left. The fact that we all responded immediately confirmed without a doubt that none of us imagined it. It was there. But when we looked down the hallway, there was nothing, no one in sight. At first, maybe I thought it was a trick of the light, but it was unmistakable. It was a dark, shifting mass moving just out of the corner of your eye. It was fast, it was menacing. I felt like it was taunting us. We decided to change rooms and start investigating other places, but no matter where we went, I felt that spirit we attempted to interact with, it was following us. It was looming in the shadows, and it created a sense of dread that I had not felt before. Footsteps would echo from different corners of the room or from the ends of hallways, but there was no one there. And when you look at the camera footage, again, no people. You could hear them clearly, the sounds of someone or something stepping around, but when you look, nothing there. As time went on, I felt so exhausted. I felt drained of my energy. I don't know if it was the fact that it was getting close to 2 a.m. or that it was a couple hours since I last drank an energy drink. I just felt like something was purposefully taking energy away from me. I got severe brain fog for the last part of the ghost hunt, and my memories of the remainder of the night are super faded and hard to focus on. I do remember our time was coming to an end. We packed the gear up into the back of the van. The guy driving handed all of us a drink. Before I opened it, I noticed everyone getting into a circle. I immediately followed. I shoved my drink into my coat pocket. Everyone's hands went into a prayer, everyone's heads dropped, and I followed along without question. One of the guys said a prayer out loud. He asked that the spirits be given some peace and that none of them follow us home, and he thanked them for allowing us to be present. Everyone lifted their heads and started loading themselves into the van. As soon as we crossed the property's threshold, I was immediately filled with a significant rush of energy. And I still hadn't opened the drink yet. That night, everything changed for me. I came in with doubts, but I left with a fear that I just couldn't shake. That place, it was so real. I don't think I'll ever go on another ghost hunt. The things I saw and the things I felt that night was enough to convince me that some mysteries are best left unsolved. For me, I'm done with the supernatural. Once was more than enough. You've just heard a chilling history of events that reminds us of the darker side of the supernatural. But here at Dark and Divine Encounters, we know that not all paranormal experiences are filled with fear. Sometimes they bring clarity, healing, and enlightenment. So let's shift our focus from here, from the eerie and unsettling world of Eloise Asylum, to the uplifting and serene energy of the Sedona Vortex sites. Our next story will uplift your spirit and remind you that not all places are haunted with darkness and fear. Instead, some places on earth offer a space of profound spiritual connection and personal transformation, providing a stark contrast to the sadness and terror of our previous tale. Long before Sedona became known for its mystical vortexes, it was home to a rich history of Indigenous peoples whose connection to the land ran deep. The story begins over 12,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, when the first humans crossed the Bering Strait into North America. These early inhabitants, skilled hunters, pursued massive creatures like mammoths across the landscape. Fast forward to about 8,000 years ago, when a new wave of civilization emerged. Known to archaeologists as the archaic hunter-gatherers, these people adapted to their surroundings, shifting from hunting large game to smaller animals like deer. Evidence of their existence is etched into the very rocks of Sedona in the form of petroglyphs, ancient symbols that speak to us today. Many of these carvings can be found in the Honanki heritage sites, located on the north side of Sedona, offering a glimpse into a world long past. Around 650 AD, according to archaeological evidence, there is a suggestion that native people settled into the area and began farming the land and became stationary. The archaeological understanding is that the Sinagwan migrated to the area. They grew corn, beans, and squash, and they lived in pit houses, which is a type of housing that they would live in for approximately 500 years. Around 1130 AD, the people of this region began constructing cliffside pueblos, living in these impressive structures until about 1300 AD. And it was around this time that the Yavapai migrated into the area. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Yavapai and the Sinagua lived together peacefully, although the Yavapai did introduce new customs and practices. One such contribution was the construction of significant monuments like the Tuzagut National Monument. By 1425, the Sinagua had completely left the region, and to this day, nobody exactly knows why. The strongest theory is that they simply migrated away into other places over time. Then in 1350, the Apache arrived and eventually assimilated with the Yavapai. Today, their descendants are known as the Yavapai-Apache Nation. In the 1580s, Spanish conquistadors traveled through the area in search of gold, but they didn't find any. Instead, they encountered the native people living peacefully. The Spaniards believed that the natives were Christian because they noticed the recurring cross shapes in their ceremonial practices. Because of the cross shapes being present, the Spaniards referred to the settlement as the Village of the Cross, and because of that, they left them in peace and continued on their journey without causing much harm or disruption. However, in 1863, gold was discovered in Prescott, and miners rushed to the area, sparking tension between settlers and the native people. The miners, using destructive methods like hydraulic mining, began damaging the land, which horrified the local tribes. The native people fought to protect the land, but the settlers were frustrated by this resistance, and they appealed to the government for military support. The government sided with the settlers, and they forced the Yavapai people to relocate to the Rio Verde Reservation, which is around what is now Globe, Arizona. By 1891, the Camp Verde mining operations had been abandoned, and that's when they allowed the Yavapai to slowly begin returning to their homeland. Unfortunately, after enduring terrible conditions on the reservation and the distress caused by the forced relocation, their social structure and way of life had taken a huge hit, and this reintegration was very difficult at first. Today, the Yavapai Nation is thriving, and the Yavapai people have been reconnecting with their ancestral home in Sedona ever since. They deserve to have their creation myths shared. In their creation story, the first woman came out of the earth at the place that is now called Montezuma Well, and their people descended from her. From the Yavapai-Apache perspective and belief system, they did not migrate from somewhere else, nor were they placed there. They came from the land itself. Furthermore, after a major flood had receded, the first woman came to safely rest in what is today Boynton Canyon. Thus, they have been in the Verde Valley since time immemorial. According to the legend, during a great 40-day and 40-night rain spell, a woman emerged from Montezuma Well. She wore a protective pearl and found shelter in the trunk of a tree. A woodpecker in Sedona freed her and guided her to Mingus Mountain, where she met the sun. She and the sun fell in love, and she settled in Boynton Canyon, known as Che'achi by the Yavapai-Apache Nation. There, she gave birth to a girl who was considered the first woman of mankind's generation in this area. This first woman is said to have originally given the land to their people. Before exploring the idea of Sedona as a healing place with energetic vortexes, I wanted to share this native history, as the Yavapai people have lived in this area long before it was settled by non-native peoples, and their story and beliefs are worthy of care and attention. It's important to note that the concept of energetic vortexes only emerged in the 1980s, which is quite recent in the grand scheme of history. The Yavapai-Apache people have lived in this area, according to archaeology anyway, since 1130 AD, which is over 890 years ago. So the idea of energetic vortexes was introduced by New Age spiritualists, not the native people of the region. Therefore, when visiting, I strongly encourage you to pay homage and respect to the Yavapai-Apache people, as they are the original stewards of this land and they deserve that recognition. With that said, I do believe in the existence of energetic vortexes. The land has been infused with energy and care by its people over centuries. So if the native people didn't promote this idea, where did the notion of Sedona's vortexes come from? Hey listeners, whether you're jetting off to explore a new city or rediscovering the hidden gems in your backyard, I've got the perfect tip for you. Check out Viator, a Tripadvisor company, for amazing deals on tickets to experiences, attractions, landmarks, and activities all over the globe. Imagine snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef, touring historic castles in Europe, or even taking a thrilling ghost tour right here at home. Viator has it all, and at reduced prices too. You might even find tickets to visit the incredible places that we talk about right here on Dark and Divine Encounters. So why wait? Dive into your next adventure with Viator and make every trip unforgettable. Click my affiliate link in the show notes to get started and support Dark and Divine Encounters while you're at it. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and follow us on social media for updates. In 1980, psychic Paige Bryant claimed that a spiritual entity named Albion revealed the existence of vortexes to her, a message that she shared in an audio recording called The Earth Changes Survival Handbook. 7 years later, in 1987, between 5,000 and 10,000 people gathered in Sedona for a spiritual event known as the Harmonic Convergence. This event, held on August 16th to the 17th in 87, was timed to align with a rare planetary alignment and was said to mark a period of transformation predicted by the Mayan calendar. The gathering had a profound impact on the Verde Valley, drawing people from around the world to Sedona, either to move there or to connect with the area's energetic grids. The Harmonic Convergence was touted as the world's first synchronized global peace meditation, heralding a new age of universal peace and signaling a major energy shift. Participants believed it would mark a turning point in Earth's collective karma and dharma, shifting humanity from conflict to cooperation. It's also important to note that the concept of collective karma and dharma are rooted in Hinduism. Many spiritual practices blend ideas from various traditions. While the Harmonic Convergence hoped to end war, materialism, violence, and injustice, these issues still persist. Over time, people have shifted their focus from expecting a complete end to these problems to now using the Sedona's vortexes and other power centers around the world as tools for personal healing. So by engaging with these powerful spaces, individuals seek to transform unhelpful ideas and practices such as violence and oppression and support their own healing and journey and give themselves a voice to their truth. In the show notes, you'll find a link to an online book titled The Sedona Vortex Experience, and it was written by Gail Johansson and Shannon Naum Berkeley. In this book, they describe Sedona's vortexes as swirling centers of concentrated spiritual energy. And visitors will often say, "I sat down on a vortex and I haven't been the same since." So these vortexes are regarded as major power points on the planet, and they're similar to acupressure points on the Earth's body. Due to their powerful energy, these areas are said to be places where energy can be seen, felt, and experienced, and this is where unusual phenomena will often occur. They highly recommend visiting these places and engaging in grounding, cleansing, and centering exercises. One such exercise is called centering in the Hara. At a vortex, you pick a vortex, any of them at Sedona, and stand with your feet shoulder width apart. You keep your knees slightly bent to avoid lightheadedness, and you gently sway back and forth and side to side, front and backwards a little bit, until you find your gravitational center. Once you found it, and you feel like your weight is evenly distributed all on your feet, take deep breaths into your belly and allow your mind to quiet and your thoughts to drift away. As you breathe deeply, you're going to let that mental chatter just gradually fade in silence. You inhale the energy of your surroundings, you feel it filling your body. And as you exhale, you imagine the energy spiraling out of you and cleansing every corner and crevice of your being. Obviously, you could do this exercise anywhere. It doesn't have to be Sedona, but the idea is that if you are standing on a vortex site and you do these types of exercises, they have a greater benefit than if you were to do it in a different place that doesn't have the same vortex energy. So to see a full compilation of the exercises, they're in the book and the link will be in my show notes. They emphasize through the exercises that each of us, our true selves, the conscious awareness spirit part of us, is vast. As vast as the endless red rock scenery that extends across the globe when you're standing on these vortex sites. That we are as vast as the starry night sky. That we are not separate from the starry night sky. And through intentional work like meditation, spiritual body movement, we can extend our consciousness to the ends of the universe. So while in Sedona, use these exercises to ground yourself in the stunning contrast of bright blue skies and striking red rock formations. This process is healing because it gently connects you to the vastness of your own reality. The author of the book that I got this data from, she says, this is a quote from her, "Spiral the energies of your divine self into your mind, your body, your beingness, and into the circumstances of your life." So have you ever wanted to see your past lives? We've had many, theoretically, according to reincarnation theory, but have you ever wanted to see one? In Sedona, it's believed that the power of its vortexes can help you receive images or impressions from your past life, which might come as feelings, memories, or visions. You might feel as if you're transported to another time. The book I read about this in encourages us to embrace deja vu experiences. So both in Sedona and in your daily life, this is a recommended practice. When trying to access past life information, it's recommended to do so on top of one of the vortexes, as your strongest physical sense is likely to pick up on something. Is your strongest sense touch, smell, sound, sight, or taste? And while you're sitting on one of the vortexes in Sedona, the idea is to focus on that strongest sense. And don't disregard the others. You're just going to lean towards that one a little more. And when you receive some information, for me, that might be a scent. For you, it might be an unusual thought, a feeling, a sound that's out of place. Lean into that experience with curiosity and treat that experience as an opportunity for exploration. By practicing this exercise, especially in Sedona, you can enhance your ability to access insight from your spiritual past, and it'll help you move forward in this current life and maybe in future reincarnations if you come back. While you're in Sedona, another recommendation is to take time to practice mindfulness fully. So that might look like gazing into the distance and observing the details, the shapes of the red rocks, the way the light reflects off the surface, the way it shifts with time, the behavior of the wildlife, the sounds around you. Notice, did it rain? And how did the rain affect the smell in the air there? To deepen the experience, consider taking off your shoes and placing the soles of your feet directly on the earth. Try to feel into it. If you can focus and tap into it, there's a feeling of vibration. Oftentimes it's credited to the human resonance. And just take notes for yourself. You can do this at home. You don't have to do it in Sedona. It's just supposed to be especially special in Sedona. In Sedona, there's a total of 7 main energy vortexes, and each vortex has its own unique energy. So there's the Bell Rock vortex, and it's known for its inspiring electrical and masculine energy. It can be felt from many miles away. It's an electromagnetic force, and it contains quartz crystals within its formation. And the quartz is said to enhance the experience. Cathedral Rock has a feminine energy and provides a cleansing effect on the mind, body, and spirit. It's considered the strongest magnetic force in Sedona, and it's highly recommended for meditation, especially for those individuals who are seeking to improve their communication or their deep internal knowledge. It's particularly beneficial for individuals struggling to find their own voice and struggling to find a way to speak their truth, especially when they're feeling oppressed or suppressed by external circumstances like other people. There's also the Chapel of the Holy Cross. This is another vortex, but it was human-made. It was man-made. It was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and it's a Catholic chapel that's been integrated into the natural landscape. It's regarded as having a gender-neutral energy that is grounding and heart-centered. Airport Mesa is another vortex, and it's an electromagnetic vortex offering 360-degree views of Sedona scenery. It's described as having a masculine energy that empowers individuals to take radical responsibility for their lives and allow them to move forward with healthy self-confidence and self-assurance. Then we have Boynton Canyon Kachina vortex. This vortex combines feminine and masculine energy, and it's regarded as one of the most mysterious and sacred vortexes. It's said to balance all parts of spiritual being and improve relationships by enhancing intimacy, honesty, and open vulnerability. There is a story that the Yavapai-Apache, that every time they would enter the canyon, they would do so through this particular vortex, and that in this space, the Boynton Canyon Kachina vortex, they would fast and meditate. Schnebly Hill is another vortex, and it's reported to help release old negative patterns and blockages. So you may feel energetic weights lifting from your shoulders and your lower back when you're here. And our last one is Courthouse Butte, and it's a strong conduit because it connects the earth and the sky. People have reported deep spiritual connections and heightened awareness in this space, and it makes its strongest vortex for personal and spiritual growth. As we consider the magnetic energy of Sedona's vortexes, it's important to honor the sacredness of this land, which was revered long before it was known for its energy centers. The Indigenous people who lived here recognized its natural beauty and power without needing the labels. So their stories, beliefs, and deep connection to the earth remain significant. Whether you're drawn to Sedona for its spiritual energy or its rich cultural history, remember this land holds many, many, many layers of mystery, both past and present. We want to hear your own paranormal experiences. Have you had an encounter with spirit or experienced something that you just cannot explain? Send your experiences our way and you might hear them featured in an upcoming episode. You can reach out via email, social media, or through our website. If you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, my donation links are in the show description along with a link to the show notes if you'd like to know more about today's topics. Your support helps us keep exploring real paranormal encounters together. And that brings us to the end of this episode today. We balanced the scales of the paranormal, revealing both the unsettling and the uplifting. Thank you for listening to Dark and Divine Encounters. Until next time, tread lightly but fearlessly.